Have you ever wondered what it feels like to wake up in a world where death walks beside you every single day? Imagine opening your eyes and realizing you are not you anymore. You are a poor peasant in medieval Europe, trapped in the middle of the deadliest pandemic in human history, the Black Death. Before we step into this grim alternate reality together, do me a quick favor, hit the like button. Let me know in the comments if you think you would survive. And subscribe if you are brave enough to explore history's darkest nightmare with me. Ready? Let us go. The year is 1347. You are a peasant, working under the authority of a local lord, living in a small village surrounded by muddy fields. Your diet consists mostly of bread, porridge, and maybe, if you are lucky, some cheese or onions. Life is hard, but at least it is predictable. You wake up early, work the land, pay taxes to the Lord, and pray for a good harvest. But then, strange rumors start spreading. Merchants and travelers speak of a deadly sickness arriving on ships from the east. Some say entire towns are falling silent, their streets filled only with corpses. You laugh nervously, thinking it could never reach your little village. After all, you are just a humble farmer, far away from the bustling cities. Yet fate has other plans. The plague does not discriminate between rich or poor. Soon, the sound of coughing, the stench of rotting flesh, and the fear of death begin to creep closer. And here is the chilling question: if you were truly there, living as a poor peasant in the middle of the Black Death, what would you do to survive? Before the Black Death arrived, your life as a peasant was already no fairy tale. You lived in a simple wooden hut, often shared with your family, a few chickens, and sometimes even your goat. Privacy? Forget it. The smell of smoke from the hearth mixed with damp straw and, let us be honest, the occasional whiff of manure. It was not glamorous, but it was home. Your daily routine was brutally repetitive. Wake up at dawn, work the Lord's land until your back ached, and if you were lucky, you got to work your own tiny plot of soil after. Your food was basic, dark bread made from rye, thin vegetable stew, and maybe a piece of salted fish if you could afford it. Forget about steak dinners and pumpkin spice lattes. Your feast was probably a slightly less burnt piece of bread. And yet, despite the hardships, there was a rhythm to your life. The church bells marked time, the seasons dictated labor, and superstition flavored your every decision. If your cow stopped giving milk, you might think a witch had cursed it. If lightning struck the field, maybe it was God's punishment. You worked, you prayed, and you endured. But here's the twist: while you may think this was unbearable, peasants back then did not know any better. To them, this was just life. So the real question is, if you suddenly woke up in their shoes, could you handle the endless labor, the hunger, and the lack of comfort, or would you collapse by day 3 and beg to respawn back into the 21st century? One evening, you notice something unusual in the village. A merchant cart rolls in carrying goods from faraway cities. But instead of excitement, there is unease. Whispers spread quickly. These travelers speak of a strange illness. People die within days, covered in painful swellings, coughing up blood. Some call it the pestilence. Others, the great mortality. You try to laugh it off, but deep inside, a cold shiver runs down your spine. At first, it seems distant, but then the rats arrive. You see them scurrying through the granary, their fleas hitching a ride onto your clothes, your bedding, your skin. Soon, the first villager falls ill. Black swellings, called buboes, rise on the body, burning fever takes over, and death comes swiftly. It feels like the grim reaper himself has taken a vacation in your village. Science today tells us the culprit was a bacterium called Yersinia pestis, spread by fleas carried on rats. But back then, nobody knew about germs. To your neighbors, this was no disease, it was divine punishment. Some say God is angry, others whisper about witchcraft, demons, or poisoned wells. The fear spreads even faster than the sickness itself. And now, the terrifying part, you can't escape it. Your hut is too small, your family too close, your food too scarce. Every cough, every sneeze feels like a death sentence. Would you cling to faith and prayer, hoping for a miracle? Or would you start questioning everything you were taught, wondering if science, or maybe even dark magic, held the key to survival. Soon, your village is drowning in fear. No one knows how to stop the plague, so people try everything, no matter how strange or desperate. Priests lead long processions, chanting prayers, swinging incense to cleanse the air. Others carry herbs in their pockets, hoping the smell of rosemary or lavender will protect them. The streets are filled with smoke from burning fires meant to drive away the sickness, though all they really do is make your eyes water. And then there are the masks. Doctors, or at least people who claim to be doctors, begin wearing those terrifying bird-like masks with long beaks stuffed with spices. You think it looks ridiculous, like a medieval cosplay gone wrong, but at the same time, you would give anything to believe it works. Some remedies are even more bizarre. People drink potions of crushed emeralds, bathe in vinegar, or rub onions on their buboes. And if that does not work, well, they blame witches. Rumors spread that someone poisoned the wells or cursed the village, and before long, innocent people are dragged out and accused of dark magic. Imagine being sick and also having to dodge an angry mob. So here's the scenario. If you were a peasant surrounded by this madness, would you join the desperate rituals? Would you try garlic necklaces, holy water, or bloodletting with rusty knives? Or would you hide away, skeptical, hoping that isolation is your only chance? As the Black Death spreads, something unexpected happens. Society itself begins to unravel. Fields lie abandoned because there are no healthy peasants left to harvest them. Grain rots in the barns, livestock wander free, and the once bustling villages fall eerily silent. The social pyramid that once crushed you suddenly tilts, and cracks appear in the old order. Even the nobility is not safe. Lords and ladies die in their manors, priests fall sick despite their prayers, and doctors admit defeat. The church, once seen as the ultimate source of guidance, loses credibility when blessings fail to stop the dying. For centuries, you were told to obey, to serve, to accept your place. But now you realize death does not care about titles. And this is where things get interesting for you, the humble peasant. With so many dead, labor becomes precious. Suddenly, lords are begging survivors to work their fields. Wages rise, food is offered, and some peasants even negotiate freedom from their feudal obligations. For the first time in your life, you are valuable. But with opportunity comes danger. Bands of desperate peasants roam the countryside, stealing, fighting, and sometimes revolting. Armed guards patrol villages, terrified of uprisings. Imagine yourself holding a rusty pitchfork, torn between two paths. Stay loyal to your lord and hope for security, or risk everything for freedom and better pay elsewhere. What would you choose? When the plague shows no sign of stopping, people turn desperately to faith, rituals, and even magic. The church encourages prayer, penance, and confession, but when priests themselves die in large numbers, many villagers begin to question whether God has abandoned them. Some wander in flagellant groups, whipping themselves in the streets, believing that their suffering might convince heaven to show mercy. Others search for protection in stranger ways. Herbal charms are sold in the marketplace, promises of plague-proof potions circulate, and local wise women offer remedies that blend medicine with superstition. A simple bag of herbs tied around your neck is said to ward off death. Desperate peasants pay whatever little they have, clinging to the hope that rosemary or sage is stronger than the plague. And then the whispers grow darker. People fear witches, demons, or curses. Strange symbols on a barn wall might be seen as evidence of sorcery. Suddenly, your neighbor, the woman who sells herbs, becomes a suspect. Villagers gather, terrified and angry, ready to accuse and sometimes to burn. The line between faith and fear blurs, and everyone is looking for someone to blame. So imagine yourself here. Would you cling to prayer, believing salvation must come from God? Would you buy charms and potions, desperate for any chance to survive? Or perhaps would you secretly start questioning both the priests and the witches, realizing that neither faith nor magic might save you in the end? By now, the plague has claimed countless lives, and survival feels like a gamble. If you are one of the few still healthy, you face a harsh decision: stay in the village and risk infection, or flee into the wilderness with nothing but your wits. Neither path guarantees safety. Some peasants try isolation, shutting themselves inside their huts, hoping starvation is less terrifying than the plague. Others head into the forests, living off berries, mushrooms, and stolen livestock. A few turn into raiders, forming gangs that attack nearby villages for food. In this world, morality often bends under the weight of survival. Would you risk becoming the villain just to see another sunrise? Modern science tells us that a small percentage of people had natural resistance to Yersinia pestis, a quirk of genetics that allowed them to live while others perished. But as a peasant in the 14th century, you would not know that. Every day you wake up alive feels like pure luck, or maybe divine favor. Adaptation also means change. You might stop shaking hands, stop attending church gatherings, avoid crowds in the marketplace. What was once community becomes suspicion. Friends look at each other with fear, as if every cough might carry death. Survival turns you into a cautious shadow of yourself, clinging to life in a world that seems designed to take it away. So, here's the ultimate test. Would you adapt quickly enough? Would you sacrifice your social ties, your morals, even your humanity, if it meant adding one more day to your life? Or would you cling to your old values, even if it cost you everything? At last, the plague begins to fade. Not because people discovered a cure, but simply because it burned through villages so fiercely that there were fewer hosts left to infect. You look around and realize that half of your neighbors are gone. Empty huts collapse into the earth. Fields grow wild with weeds, and silence lingers where laughter once lived. But from this devastation, new possibilities emerge. With so few peasants left, survivors suddenly have bargaining power. Lords must pay better wages, offer food, even grant freedom from feudal bonds. Entire families rise from poverty to newfound independence. For the first time, peasants are no longer invisible. The Black Death also reshapes Europe in ways no one could imagine. The church loses some of its absolute grip as people question why prayer alone could not save them. Medicine, though still primitive, begins to lean more toward observation and less toward superstition. In a strange, tragic way, the plague pushes society toward change. For you, the survivor, this is both a gift and a curse. You lived through the horror, but at the cost of everything familiar. The question is, what would you do with this second chance? Would you cling to the old order, grateful just to be alive, or would you seize the opportunity to demand more freedom, more dignity, more life? Thank you for traveling with me into the darkest corners of history. If you enjoyed this journey, make sure to like and subscribe so you do not miss the next adventure. But before you go, I have one final question for you. If you had lived through the Black Death as a peasant, what choice would you have made to survive, and what topic from history should we dive into next? Leave your answers in the comments. I can't wait to read them.